Into the Pit was just announced as the next FNAF game, and it's pretty crazy if you think about it. Not only are we getting another FNAF game, but it's adapting a story from the Fazbear Frights book series, which is something we have never seen happen. I saw this as the perfect time to make a video requested by a subscriber. 9 months ago, Ads commented the following, suggesting I made a video about Pit Bonnie. Damn, I can't upload for shit. But anyway, I think it's finally time to explain the story of Into the Pit. And just a small spoiler alert, but I'm guessing since you clicked on this video, you know what you're getting yourself into. And Ads, if you're watching this, comment something down below. Anyway, the story introduces us to Oswald, which I'm gonna be calling Ozzy for no particular reason. Right off the start, they revealed to us that this whole town and his family were struggling with money and some other reasons, but I'm gonna try to avoid that for the sake of this video. And thanks to that, most of his friends were moving out. And I'll talk about the time placement of the story in a short because this video is already pretty long. Anyway, due to his parents not being home, they didn't want to leave him by himself, so they would drop him off at the library while he would draw and read books. Something I want to point out is how much they emphasize his drawings of the FNAF animatronics, since he probably never saw them if the story takes place in 2012, which it seems like it does, considering the FNAF name hasn't been around since 1993 or the FNAF 1 location. And I'm sure I know why, but I'll cover that later on in the video. Anyway, after leaving him in the library, he would later go to Jeff's Pizza whenever he got hungry. And that's where everything goes down. That's where the menacing ball pit was at, and he would always stare at it confused as to why it was there, feeling some sort of presence within it. Sadly, the boy's days were pretty boring. He would repeat this cycle consistently until he finally got tired of it. He kept getting upset at his dad since he saw how all his friends were having fun during the summer. So he wished that something interesting could happen to make his summer better. And, well, it happened. Eventually, Ozzy thought it was a good idea to play a prank on his dad by hiding in the outer service ball pit. So he went into the pit. I said it. Into the pit. Therefore, his dad had to go look for him. So he stayed there for a bit, but he was running out of air. So he emerged to the surface, only to find out he was in the 1985 Freddy Fazbear's location. At the time this book came out, this was huge because we knew there was a FNAF location before the FNAF 2, in which the original MCI happened, but having a more accurate date and confirmation of the 1985 location was huge. For some reason, he had like the most nonchalant reaction and just played it off and decided to play with some kids he found and ended up making new friends. He was finally having fun and enjoying his summer. On certain occasions, he wanted to leave, but for some reason, fast coins would appear in his pocket, meaning he could play longer. And now that I look back at it, that's incredibly weird. What was spawning in these coins out of nowhere? Maybe something that wanted him to stay longer. And we will soon find out what that something was. Every time he would go, someone in a Spring Bonnie costume was watching him, observing him, like if he knew that something was wrong. And that's incredibly weird. Why would William Afton be so interested in this kid unless it actually wasn't William Afton in this suit? Now, I want you to keep that in mind for the rest of the video. What if this actually isn't William Afton and rather a dark entity? Anyway, once he got home, he asked his dad about the 1985 Freddy's location, and he gives the most nonchalant answer, almost like if he knew what happened there and just didn't want to tell him. You can see the fear and worry on his face. And listen here, buddy, I know you're hiding something like that freaking bald ass hippo. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna figure it out, and I think I did in later on in this video. But anyway, he also drops a major bomb that would help us figure out the time placement of the story. He said during 1985 he was around Ozzy's age, meaning 10 years old. Anyway, he went back into the ball pit, but something was different. There were screams. Something wasn't right. He found himself witnessing the missing children's incident from 1985. Thinking he couldn't die since he wasn't born yet, which is kind of stupid now that I think about it. He follows Spring Bonnie to a dark room, which, oh my god, what are you thinking, dumbass little kid? In which he finds the dead bodies of the kids from the missing children's incident. Yellow Rabbit Man tries to give him a really big hug, but he gets weaved by Ozzy, and bro dips. He doesn't even think about it twice and goes straight into the ball pit. He went back to his original time period and he saw his dad worried about him, looking for him. Before Oswald could explain anything to his dad, Spring Bonnie came out of the pit and grabbed him and pulled him inside of the ball pit. After a short wrestle, we see that Spring Bonnie came out on top and got out of the ball pit and grabbed Oswald by his hand. But for some reason, Jeff didn't react to this at all. Now let me speedrun this last part. So basically, it kind of seemed like the Spring Bonnie suit had taken the role of his dad. Everybody else just saw Ozzy's dad, but he was the only one that could actually see the Yellow Rabbit Man instead of his dad. And he would basically do the same activities Ozzy's dad would do, but it was weird because not a single word came out of his mouth. He never spoke, he was just sitting there menacingly the whole time. Ozzy thought everything was just a dream, but he later woke up the next day to see his dad, or, well, Spring Bonnie, sitting in the dining table. Eventually he got tired of it and decided to sneak out at night. He has a quick little conversation with a side character about being brave, and goes back into the pit to look for his dad, and he sees that his dad was there the whole time. Yellow Rabbit Man finally finds him and they have a little fight. And it's crazy how this little kid was fighting back a huge, super heavy rabbit suit. Eventually, the Yellow Rabbit Man decides to go Tarzan mode and ends up choking himself with the netting. His dad finally wakes up, and then we have the most shocking and important detail about this book. Well, first of all, the suit was empty, and nobody else saw this event happening. And not only was the suit empty, it appeared to be in an older, more decrepit state. And that made many people to believe this was all a dream, but it actually wasn't, because Oswald still had the bite marks on his arm from the fight with the Spring Bonnie suit. And now we can finally get to theorizing. So first of all, like I said before, this actually happened. It wasn't a dream of any kind. Now the real question is, did we actually time travel? And for that question, honestly, I think that's also a yes. I know FNAF is actually crazy with some of the topics they come up with, but most of the times they try to make it make sense. I think I can explain how the time traveling works, and if it even is time traveling, even though I do believe it is time traveling. And it all goes back to Spring Bonnie. Is this actually William Afton, or is it something else, a ghost, a spirit? I believe this actually, once again, Agony, and I've dealt with this topic a couple times before, but I stand by it. I think this Bonnie suit mascot thing is actually made up of Agony. My evidence for this is right here. Notice anything strange in this image? Well, let me zoom in. Now, do you notice anything strange? There's actually two really weird details. First of all, his skin is actually purple if you zoom in, and there's a black goo coming out of his eye. And just in case you didn't know, William Afton's skin isn't actually purple. This black goo is actually mentioned in the books and is associated with the Agony, which pretty much confirms my theory. I think this Bonnie suit is a dark entity made up of Agony, kinda like Shadow Bonnie. And before you go crazy in the comments, I didn't say this is actually Shadow Bonnie. I said kinda like Shadow Bonnie. Another thing we gotta take in mind is that the bugs take place in a different universe than the games, or at least that's what Scott said, to take it with a grain of salt. They're parallels to what happens in the games. Now put that dark entity into the equation and everything makes a little bit more sense. And why would William Afton show us the victims? That was one of the stupidest scenes I've ever read before. But if we add dark entity / Agony into the equation, it makes a little bit more sense. Allow me to explain everything real quick. This ball pit was filled with agony from what happened in the 1985 Freddy Fazbear's location. So we go into the ball pit, and for whatever reason, the agony takes us into the 1985 Freddy's location. This is where the controversy comes in. Did we time travel, or are we just revisiting an old memory? Since if we actually time travel, why was this dark entity able to spawn in coins in our pockets? It wouldn't be possible unless we're in some sort of memory where it had control of what happened there and was able to manipulate the outcomes. Maybe it wanted us to stay there longer to feed on us. I believe it's a little bit of both, since at the end of the book we see the costume was there the whole time, so I believe we actually time traveled in a way, and the coins appearing in our pockets are explained with that just being the abilities of this dark entity. So I know this book is a little bit confusing, but just hang in there for a little bit. So now I think this is probably the part that's the most confusing. Did Ozzy's dad switch places with the Spring Bonnie suit? Well, I believe so, and honestly I think this is probably gonna be explained in the game, so if I get this right, oh my god, I'm a genius. If not, oh well, too bad. This probably has something to do with the weird abilities of how agony works, kind of like a possessed item. And I think that's the answer. Throwing agony into every single weird detail of this book actually makes it have a little bit more sense. Agony being the supernatural force that just basically has incredible powers, and that yet has to be explained to us, since, well, we have heard of it, but we haven't fully explored it to its maximum extent. And I think that's what the game's gonna be about. It's gonna explore Agony a little bit more, and I think most of us are right thinking that this actually isn't William Afton, rather some dark entity controlling the suit. I do feel like the game's gonna take a different approach, since we saw that the animatronics from 1985 location were also attacking us. This could be due to the Agony affecting them too, since the kids were literally stuffed in there, but who knows. We'll have to see when the game gets officially released.